Welcome to the Prompt First, Ask Later podcast. Hey, it's another episode of the Prompt First, Ask Later podcast with your AI guys. I'm Ken Peel, along with Sagar and Joseph Kim is here from Spej. Guys, hey, thanks for being here. Man, good to see you guys. How you been?
Good, man. We got one of our esteemed teammates here with us today, so I'm extra excited.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been a while,
that's
man.
right.
Joseph,
Yeah,
well,
has been.
Yeah.
You guys have been
Yeah, it's
holding the
good.
fort really well, talking about cool stuff, talking about good business stuff. I'm sorry that I'm going to be here to ruin the party. I mean,
No, not at all.
let's take it down a notch.
Well, I just want to have
This is a
fun
great
because you,
viral strategy, by the way. Let's
yeah.
take it down
Yeah.
a notch, dump things
Right.
down, and we can bring in
So-
bring in the business.
we've got a lot of things to talk about today, different topics dealing
Yeah, I'm
with
excited.
AI, because for a lack of better words, AI has kind of infiltrated pop culture today. And so I liked our conversation off of the recording before we started. And you said, hey guys, Ken, we're just going to jam and nerd out today. So hope you don't mind. And I said, no, this is great. Let's do this. And so let's talk a little bit about AI in general and when AI kind of stopped feeling like just a movie thing to you and turn into like a real life thing, because we've had AI kind of shown to us in movies for the past 30 plus years, but now it's here and now it's real. And I think that's what makes this particular show or this podcast going to be super exciting to talk about where it's at. Where do you see it going and how is it affecting our culture today?
It was actually in the mid 2010s when I just joined a semi-competitive online fantasy baseball league. And actually,
Okay.
our esteemed colleague Sean was part of that as well, and we just joined this
Yeah.
with our mutual friend. And this was with CBS Fantasy Sports.
Okay.
And you picked your players, change your rosters, etc. And so every week, the CBS Fantasy Sports system would provide an analysis of not only your team and how your team did, but also the entire league. And it was uncanny at how legitimate it was and how human it's sounding the reports were. It would factor in injuries and why I sat certain pitchers and played certain pitchers, or why I surged in the rankings because a certain hitter had a really solid week or what have you.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how accurate and how natural it sounding was. And I presumed it was at first that it was a bunch of CBS Fantasy Sports staffers just typing all of that. I was not that's impossible. There's who knows how many thousands of leagues there are. There's no way they're doing this on a weekly basis. And plus it's free, how would they
Yeah.
be able to do that? And it just struck me that the only way they can do this was that it had to be computer generated. But from the AI perspective, it was my first experience where this actually sounds like it was written by a human being.
Yeah.
And that's when it really struck me. It was like a pre-Chat GPT moment. And what I discovered later was that actually was AI generated, but with a precursor product. I think it was called Wordplay or something like that. Like AI Insight. I forgot the name of it. AI Generative Insights, there was an actual company that did that. And that was my first experience where it was fantasy baseball and those weekly reports in the mid 2010s. And it's about just over 10 years ago. And it struck me how authentic it felt and how quickly it was being generated on a weekly basis. To me, that was instant.
Right.
But I echo Joseph in the timing and thinking back to probably 2016. I was running my previous company at the time. We had some office space out in the Chicago suburbs. So the folks that are watching, this is on Algonquin in Rolling Meadows, right off of 53.
Okay.
We had an office space there, and we were in the IT business. At that time, one of my dad's friends brought his Tesla Model S. This is 2016, okay? Brought his Tesla to the office. We were doing some work for him, and we were going to go out to lunch. So he's like, I'll just pick you up, hop in, we'll go. I'd never heard, I've heard of the Tesla. I'd never been in one. It's still
Yeah.
relatively new-ish, right? Model S being the first vehicle that they created. And we jump in, and this friend of ours, he's like, have you ever been in a Tesla? I said, no, I've never been in a Tesla. Heard a lot about it, right? Which is awesome. He's like, check this out. We get on the highway. This guy puts on like this thing called Autopilot, and he
Right.
like hits the transmission bulk thing, right, where you change it. He hits it twice. The car, and I've seen adaptive cruise control. I'm like, oh, this is whatever. It just speeds up, slows down. It stays in the lane. But it's staying in the middle, It understands when there's a car in front. It sees the silhouette of it. It's making adjustments when it's giving him recommendations on what to do. And that's really the first time when I was like, all right, so not only does the car know what's in front and what's around it, but it's the early versions of AI reasoning where it's
Yeah.
getting a bunch of input from just reacting on the road. And it was smooth. And I saw the big screen in the middle. I'm like, all right, there is going to be a moment in time where this is going to drive itself from one place A to B. And obviously, watching it now, 11 years later, 10 years later, yeah, full self-driving drives you from point A to point B, fully supervised
Yeah.
FSD, where it can go from start to finish. So that's when I knew there's something happening. Systems are not just static, where you as a human have to determine the exact steps from start to finish. The system itself can start thinking about it. So I noticed it in the Tesla. I was just so amazed. I drive Tesla now. I'm about to get another Tesla next month because our lease is ending. Amazing
Yeah.
product in itself, the engineering. So that was really the first time, Ken and Joseph, when I realized the world's going to change. I did not imagine
Yeah.
that it was going to be in this short of a time frame. So that was my
Sure.
first jump. My second jump, we had gotten access to GPT 3.5 in like mid 2022. So it was like 4 years ago. And it was very clumsy. It was just like it could generate some text. And Joseph, similar to your example, we thought it was just people writing back. Who would have known that 4 years later, this is the world that we're going to be living in? So the velocity at which it has moved has just been unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm kind of along the same lines as you guys. I mean, a buddy of mine had a Tesla and he came out to the farm here where I'm at and he goes, "You want to go for a ride?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we're driving the back roads out in the middle of nowhere. And he goes, "Oh, by the way, I just downloaded the new installment of the software for the autopilot part." And I go, "Great. So we're going to try this untested software on this car." And he goes, "So here's the deal. It can recognize stoplights. It'll recognize different types of vehicles, all this different stuff." And so we're flying down this back road and there's a tractor that pulls out in front of us off of a side road. And I thought, all right, this is it. Either the software is going to work or I'm done.
Your newspaper headline.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And the car just, it recognized it, slowed down, and then he just took control and manually passed just to make sure everything was safe. But yeah, it was amazing what this stuff can do. And so it's amazing where we've come in the last 10, 15 years with AI. But, Joseph, you brought up the topic that you wanted to talk about, and that's movies, and a AI-ish feel to movies have been around for decades. And now we're seeing things that are actually mirroring and actually seeing in reality happen in our society today. And so what movie really kind of got you going on thinking about AI, but also about maybe wanting to do this topic?
They're kind of the usual suspects, like the OG Lost in Space is one, like
Yeah,
super old,
right.
super old, like seeing reruns of that on syndication. But the one that
Danger.
exactly, Will Robinson, Danger. And that's true. And there were certainly robots and things like that before, but I didn't necessarily frame it in terms of artificial intelligence. The one that I think the other usual suspect, I think that for probably most of our viewers, of course, is 2001.
Yeah.
With HAL. And I get that. And I think that was my first experience in a pop culture sense of like a robot thinking independently.
Right.
Or a computer thinking independently. So I guess that technically is it. But the movie that I think really struck me that now has staying power because the HAL 9000, I think it peaked in terms of where it went with Deep Blue. Remember Deep Blue?
Yeah.
Went against Gary Kasparov in chess, and it was like big news, global news that it beat Gary Kasparov in chess, and that was a big deal. And it was this huge machine. It was just a singular machine that was programmed specifically to beat Gary Kasparov. And now, of course, you can beat Gary Kasparov just from your chess app on your phone. And that to me was the trajectory of like HAL 9000, 2001 Space Odyssey to like one big honking box that could think and beat a human. But sorry for the buildup, but I think the movie that now points to where we're at now is Star Trek, the OG Star Trek.
Okay.
Star Trek 1, the motion picture. What was that? 1979? 1981?
I think so.
something like that. Okay, somebody
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
check
yeah.
me on that. It's been decades, so there's no such thing as spoiler alerts. I think the spoiler alert window has now expired, so we can talk about plot.
The
'Cause
statutes
there's a
of
twist.
limitations on
The
spoiler alert.
statute of limitations for spoilers. For me, if it's 1 year. You got 1 year, and then
One
it's fair
year,
game. You can
man. I'm
talk
thinking
about it,
like a
right?
Wow.
decade. I'm thinking 10 years. This
Yeah,
guy's like, if you haven't seen in a year, day
yeah,
366, you're out of luck, man.
Joseph's going, you got 365 days, pal. Then you're done.
yeah, exactly. All the good M. Night
Aggressive.
Shyamalan movies, Sixth Sense.
Yeah, Sixth
Oh,
Sense.
yeah.
Anyway,
Great movie.
he was dead. So that's more than a year. That's a lot more than a year. So anyway, so it was super prescient because if you remember the movie, there's Kirk and the Enterprise was sent out because there's this ominous entity cloud coming towards Earth.
Right.
And they discover it's 82 million miles wide. And what is it? It's a nebulous cloud. It's a cloud. And they discover as they enter into the cloud that there's artifacts, there's knowledge, and they discover at the heart of it that it's V'ger, right? It's V'ger that is self-aware and thinking. And its mission is to find the creator. V'ger wants to find the creator. And what they discover through the movie is that it's actually Voyager 6 or something like that was sent out in the late 20th century with the sole mission to accumulate and find out as much information as possible and as much knowledge as possible and report back to your creator, basically humanity. And so it's doing this. It goes out, it slips into a wormhole, gets rescued by these cybernetic like alien species, and it gets outfitted in a way that its mission can be accomplished, which is to accumulate as much knowledge and data as possible in the universe and then return back. And it was amazing to me, reflecting back on that movie, is that the representation of that intelligence was a cloud. I don't even know if they knew that at the time. 1979, the movie came out.
Yeah.
The representation of this immense thing was a cloud, and its knowledge, its mission was to ingest data, essentially ingest, comprehend data, and return that data to its original programmers. And what was really amazing to me about this is that the idea of a network representation in a cloud, that only happened like 2 years before that, in 1977, where with ARPANET, and telecommunications, like when you didn't want to show all the wires in a data schema, like a network schema, you just represented it in a cloud. And that only happened a couple of years before. And I don't think they realized when they were doing the movie that it was actually an engineering thing. And it's amazing to me. I don't even know if they realized what they were doing at the time, that they were presenting artificial intelligence as this network thing that ingests data, represented as this enormous nebulous cloud with a mission to serve humanity and to return that data back to humanity. That was 1979. And so for me, that more than 2001 Space Odyssey, which was like, 10 years before that, to me, that was like the OG AI movie that rings true today, that you can see those things. And I still remember the scene when Spock was crying because it was really, the real questions were more about like humanity and about soul and mission and purpose and philosophy. And those things, it's like the difference between knowledge and wisdom. That those are the themes that were being brought up in the movie. It was so philosophical. But I love that representation as it applies now and as we can see it now. I don't even know if they realized what they were doing.
Super interesting because, Joseph, what you bring up is just this foresight of predicting what could happen in the future. It's just incredible. And we talk
the
about this a lot.
representation of a cloud is, to me, that was like, they were just creative people. I don't think they were thinking about it.
They didn't know that this would be where we are in 2026. And I think back to when I say this a lot in the talks and keynotes that I give, but the term artificial intelligence, AI, was first spoken in like the 1950s when Alan Turing was at the Dartmouth conference. And all the really smart, scholarly folks said, how do we mimic human intelligence instead of machines? That's 70 plus years ago, which is just incredible to me. Almost 70 years ago as of next year. This year, actually. This is the 70th year when that happened because it was 1956.
And he came up
years ago.
And he came up with the Turing test.
Yeah. So the Turing test is there, and who knows where we're going to be 70 years from now. For me, the movies, a little bit younger generation, but for me, it really started with Terminator 2 in 1991. I mean, that's the number one meme that people use now. when he's in the car driving and he says Skynet came online April 7th, 1997 at 3:02 a.m. or whatever the specific date was. I don't have it memorized. That was number one for me. And it's been like the influence of all the tattoos that I have is because I love Terminator stuff. So I got like Terminator stuff on my arm. If you can't see that, right? I have Terminator stuff. I love that movie.
I never
so
knew
much.
that.
I know that was
I'm
the
a
basis of it.
T1000. Yeah, I'm a T1000. I got all this stuff. I love the movie so much.
Your tattoos
I
are
wanna-
far nerdier than I thought they
Yeah,
were.
they're very nerdy tattoos. All right. So Terminator 1 or Terminator 2, that's my all-time favorite movie by far. Okay. Number one ever. Okay. So that was it for me, was Terminator 2. And I think of Skynet and all this conversation around, is AI going to be super intelligence? Are we going to be, if you haven't watched, have you guys seen the AI documentary?
I
The
have not.
AI Apocalypse, the guy that did that. It's from like this year.
Okay.
All the
Now we're
major,
going to watch it.
yeah, it's an AI. It's called the AI Doc. And all the major Frontier Lab CEOs from Sam Altman, Dario, Demis, they're all on there. And this guy just makes a movie. And I watched it on a plane the other day, I think the last week or the week before. And it is some interesting stuff. So anyway, Terminator 2. The second movie for me, Joseph, was The Matrix, the original Matrix in 1999.
That's the one I was going to talk
When
about
the
too. Yeah.
first scene where Agent Smith comes out, that's when I'm like, and then he like multiplies himself. There's like 50 of them. That's when I knew. I'm like, all right, these guys are the Wachowski brothers are just thinking. And again, maybe they're being creative. They had no idea at that time, 27 years ago, that this is the world we're going to be living in. That movie started it for me, just all the technology and just where it was, the cell phone where they call in and you can transfer out. When they did all that. And the number one example I used from that movie is when Neo has to go fight Morpheus in that like kung fu scene or karate scene.
Yep.
Where what's the guy, Blazer? He's like, hey, Neo's like Blazer or whatever the guy's name is, the guy that handles the computers. I can't think of it right now, but he's like, I don't know how to fight this guy. I don't know. So he's like, all right, I got you. Sit down. That thing goes in the back of his neck. And within 5 seconds, this guy, Neo, gets up. And now he's like a triple black belt kung fu master, gets in with Morpheus and beats Morpheus's ass in the show.
The best line. Yeah, it was one of the best lines in the movie. He goes, whoa, I know kung fu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that I can't say it like Keanu Reeves, but that was the best line, one of the best lines. Whoa, I know kung fu.
That moment where they insert and he learns, that's present day skills files, skills.nd. So if you're watching this and you want your organization immediately to learn how Neo did kung fu or karate in that movie, build a skills library. So that's what I say. So that's the second one. And the third one from there is, more recently, and I know Joseph's going to say, of course, so obvious, is 2014 Ex Machina. And that, I think, just like pretty much outlines present day AI right now. And so many references from that movie. And the line that they say when they're both sitting outside was like, at some point in the future, the machine and AI is going to look back at us as just a super primitive species that just lived in the dust and didn't do much. And I hope that's not the case. But I think that movie has really been used in the comparison of how present day AI is actually existing. So we've had like multiple examples, Ken, as you know, in either a creative mindset with the nebulous cloud, had no idea that this is the future that we're going to be living in, to some pretty scarily accurate depictions of how this may look. And I always get this question like, Sagar, what's the future? What's going to happen? I have no idea. I have no crystal ball. I can't speculate. And the speed at which it's moving, nothing surprises me anymore, guys. So it's an exciting place to be, but also kind of terrifying at the same time.
I think for me, The Matrix was one of the movies that really made me think about reality and how technology can affect reality. Far-fetched as it might have seemed when it came out, we're starting to see things that mimic it in our society today in a way, which is kind of scary. But the other show, the TV show that really freaked me out a little bit, and that was the TV show Person of Interest. Did you ever see that movie with Jim Caviezel, and where all these AI cameras and this whole central brain is watching people and preventing dramatic things from happening and stopping people from killing other people and all this other stuff, and it starts taking over. And so that show really hit home for me as to what technology is capable of and how it affects our society, and it gets you thinking. Is that really happening? Are things like that really going on? And when you talk with somebody else and you have your phone in the room and you open up Facebook or you open up another app, and you start seeing ads about the things you were just talking about, that is really freaky. And my wife is totally freaked out by that, by the way. She goes, I'm not ever seeing anything around my phone again.
Do sign language, just write stuff down. Well, you could have
That's
meta glasses, it's still gonna know, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
you
exactly.
reminded me, man, there's Joseph and Ken, there's a movie by Shia LaBeouf from 2008, Eagle Eye.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that movie?
Yeah. I
I
remember
Where
don't
he's
know.
the
I
ex,
don't know if
like,
I've ever seen
Navy,
that.
he's an ex-military and there's cameras and it's a sentient being that chases him around and looks at all the cameras. So that's there. And then of course the newest Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I mean, that's totally Ethan Hunt
Yeah.
versus an AI.
the
The
entity.
AI.
Right.
The entity.
The entity.
Yeah, the
The
entity.
entity. I won't spoil
Yeah.
that one.
But
It
you
hasn't
know,
been a year yet. Don't spoil that
That's
one. It hasn't
right.
been a year yet.
Yeah.
All right.
You got 35
are you,
days left.
are
No,
you
I don't
kidding
know.
me?
It hasn't
It's
been a year.
the
We gotta
entity.
look it up.
Mission Impossible?
Yeah.
That's been way more than a year.
No. Final Reckoning? No. Final Reckoning. I gotta
Okay,
look up
fact
the
check.
date.
Fact check time.
Fact checking time.
It came
All
out.
right. So
Oh
can we
man,
get
May 23rd, 2015. Oh man, he's not
2015. No,
20,
no, no.
2025.
2020?
May 23rd, 2025. A year and
All
2
right.
months ago. So just
Yeah,
over.
yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. So going to
All
spoil
right.
for you.
Spoiler
No,
alert.
I'm just kidding. No, I
Mission
won't.
Impossible Final Reckoning.
Yeah, no, I think there's a technical 365 days, and then there's like a year. So I'm going to be a little.
I got it. All right. So The
I won't
Entity.
be a
That's a good movie. I haven't
spoiler,
seen
bro.
it. Check it out.
Well,
Yeah, that is
well,
real
let's
good.
not spoiling by saying the entity. But what is interesting about that is the apocalyptic nature of AI has always been part of the narrative. Again, I think it got popularized with 2001 Space Odyssey with HAL 9000. And then, of course, I think it just exploded with Terminator, as you were mentioning, with Skynet. But what was kind of interesting now about the way that, and I'm not spoiling the movie, even though it sounds like I am, but I'm not really spoiling the movie. The way that the entity is being portrayed in Final Reckoning is that, in Dead Reckoning as well, is that it's apocalyptic, yes, but it's no longer through brute force. Like Skynet was dangerous because of brute force of what it can do. It can unleash the machines, and it has hunter drones that go after the humans and that are hiding out. But with the entity, it's about misinformation. It's about repackaging identity. It's about a deception, these kinds of things, which is much more real, much more current, of course, in terms of the way that we struggle with some of the negative fallout from AI and the concerns that AI at scale can do things on its own,
That's
but
right.
not necessarily by beating us up, brute force, Skynet, but the entity is very different in terms of the more modern view of the apocalyptic nature of AI.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point, Joseph, which is the depiction of the apocalyptic side of AI, I think adds a little bit of that modern day pessimism and anxiety towards the speed at which all this stuff is moving. I get a lot of questions around, all right, what's the safety of this stuff? Like, are we really governing it correctly? Not just from a data security standpoint, but just the AI that exists today, getting access to systems that have consequences if it's not done correctly. And all that debate around, are we using it for good or are we using it for things that would be considered skeptical? Or maybe things that may harm others. So there's definitely that question around ethics. And I know with the customers that we talk to and the companies that we support, there's always that apocalyptic view that's kind of been programmed in our brains from just movies and pop culture. And I find ourselves, I talked about this in a recent video that I posted on LinkedIn, where I feel like, Joseph, what you mentioned, that apocalyptic nature requires then us as AI implementation folks to 50% of our time, we're playing therapist because we have to unravel that mindset, that shaping, that conditioning, because it's been portrayed for so long in media. So we are up against that. And of course, the AI can do so much good. We've seen it, we deploy it every day, and we see our clients' jaws drop. Like, that's a moment for me when I'm like, all right, we did something great. But it's that mentality that Skynet's going to take over the world. And because of that, it quite frankly slows down our ability to make meaningful progress in a world that has a velocity that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think that it really affects the trust level of people and the trust level that they have in the technology, because you have some different factors, in my opinion. Here, you have the lack of knowledge about it, and then you have these apocalyptic, scary scenarios that we see in movies, and then you see people trying to implement it into business practices, and then there's that fear factor. And so I think we're fighting that battle as well when you're dealing with this type of thing.
That said, though, I want to push back against that a little bit, in so much to say that what movies do effectively is tap into their fears, not because they're irrational, their fears because they're possible. There's a lot of unwarranted or maybe excessive fear that we're getting at. It wasn't too long ago before Elon started with Grok and XAI and then merged it into SpaceX that Elon was the one like
beating the drum.
beating the
Sound the
drum
alarm.
about the dangers of AI in terms of the threat to humanity that it was. And now he's putting it into his spaceships. But we're at just think of the Avengers, another great AI movie. We're at the point of Jarvis, AI assistant that we talk to, super intelligent. And with Jarvis, we can find out how to time travel like Tony Stark did. It was prompt based. When he was figuring out the time machine, he was prompt based interaction. But we have a fork in the road with AI. Jarvis, where we're kind of the age of Jarvis that we're on right now, could either go into the direction of the age of Ultron, the apocalyptic nature, where the intent was by Tony Stark to put armor around the world. And what happened as a result was Ultron, who did an analysis of the internet and all that humanity was doing and realized, you know what, we got to get rid of humanity. Humanity is the virus that we got to get rid of. You can go in the direction right now. We can go in the direction in the age of Ultron, or we can go in the direction. What was the alternative? Vision. Do you remember that? Vision was like an embodied form of Jarvis.
Yeah.
And he saw the same things that Ultron saw, but decided that I'm going to be a partner with humanity. I'm going to help humanity. I'm going to assist humanity. In fact, I'm going to fall in love with one of the Avengers, so to speak, fall as much as he can. So it almost feels like there's a trajectory that we can go. We can go into the age of Ultron, or we can go into the age of Vision. And there really, a lot of this stuff in terms of which path we go it's a lot of stuff that goes beyond just technology. It's like philosophy and just thinking about what does it mean to be human. And we need the Mind Stone to point us in the right direction.
Yeah.
Totally right. And I think these are all questions that we do not have the answers to, Joseph. I feel like some of the work we're doing is to solve problems that may not exist yet. So we're guessing. And I know the standard model of solving stuff like this is to look back in the past and history and learn from it so that we don't repeat the same things that happened before. But this is uncharted territory. And I always preface any conversation that I have in front of a group of people about artificial intelligence or just the future by stating that this is my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen, because the stuff that we're talking about, Joseph, 6 months ago is completely different now. And 6 months from now is probably going to be things that we're not even thinking of right now. So being in this industry as an AI implementation company, it's a lot of volatility. It's like moving at a speed that has just become the norm, where 2-3 years ago you would be seen as a crazy person. And then you're just making judgment calls on right or incorrect. I wouldn't say wrong, just incorrect. And unfortunately, some of that is determined by the act of doing the implementation, collecting data, trying stuff. Most companies that we talk to, they're not okay with trying or experimentation. They want deterministic output. They want to know for sure if they invest X, are they going to get Y? And that's not usually the case. So it's just really interesting now to have to be like the experimentation leaders and reshape people's thinking, whether apocalyptic or not. It's just really, really fascinating to me how different people respond to this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting discussion, interesting episode, and we may continue this down the road here and talk more about it in another episode of the Prompt First Ask Later podcast. But, at Spej, we're a firm that basically helps people and organizations, especially in careful, regulated fields, actually use AI with confidence instead of being scared or being faked out by it. We're here to help integrate it, to help you understand it, and to help you embrace it as opposed to be scared of it. Because it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And so that's why we're here, is to help explain it and help you integrate it into your organization. And if you'd like to have a conversation with us, we'd love to do that. I'll put down in the comments below the website to get a hold of us. You can also, of course, reach out to us on LinkedIn. But guys, thanks so much for the fun conversation. And just rehashing some good movies and just thoughts on those. Joseph, appreciate your insight and
thanks for having me.
Your excitement about this topic. It's very cool. So again, this is the Prompt First Ask Later podcast. Appreciate you being along with us here, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody. See you on the next one.